Tonight on the MTN News, a crossroads at the Colonial.
I'm just wondering when enough is enough.
Dozens of calls for service pile up again this year here at 223 South 27th Street after attempts to negotiate its fate with the owner. The city's lawsuit will soon have its day in court.
Plus, wild winds topple semis, shutting down I-90. We'll show you what's in the forecast on this busy weather day. And strike up the band. A Billings bar transforms itself into an Irish pub. Where to find a slice of Ireland right here in the Magic City. The MTN 530 News starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
And good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Andrea Lutz. We're coming to you from the south side of Billings, where the crime-ridden Colonial Apartments could be one step closer to their demise. City leaders say they're aggressively pursuing litigation to either have the building demolished or repaired. And now the case will go before a jury trial in January. Still, cases here continue to stack up. It doesn't seem to matter.
There was about 10 or 15 cops that pulled up.
Day or night.
They took somebody into custody and then did a little bit of investigating and then drove away.
Crime and the Colonial often collide.
I don't even have fingers for how many times I've seen that happen.
Annika Lawler, who travels the city working as a DoorDash driver, describes the latest crime scene to unfold before her very eyes in broad daylight.
I'm just wondering when enough is enough.
It's a question many are asking, and enough could be soon.
It shouldn't take this long.
Here's the latest. After mediation attempts failed, the case is headed to a jury trial. The lawsuit is an aggressive tactic used through code enforcement to clean up the many violations on the property, accusing owner John Skoggy of maintaining a dangerous structure.
There's obviously reports of crime after crime after crime.
At last check, crime at the Colonial is down from last year. Still, there was a whopping 152 calls to the Colonial this year.
But then the house is still standing.
In response to the city's lawsuit, Skoggy says he's made upgrades, including a new fire escape, and denies it's the subject of excessive calls, even removing troublesome tenants and providing housing for an unrepresented community.
You need a place to live. Those people got to go someplace.
A point Frank Ewalt agrees with.
That's a warmer place than being outside.
The former city councilor warns if the Colonial is demolished at the hands of the city, another issue will surface.
Even though it's not what I'd like to live in, what you'd like to live in, what the mayor'd like to live in, it's better than living on the street.
The Colonial is a historic building, once linked to the success of Billings.
It's just absolutely insane. And I know crime doesn't have an address, but we got to fix that.
Home to a complicated issue. From the outside, the Colonial is looking a lot better than it has in recent years. That's thanks to code enforcement working with the owner. But it was only back in 2021 that the Colonial had as many as 450 calls for service here. And while those numbers have decreased recently, police still respond here quite a bit. In the last month and a half, they responded to the Colonial 20 times, running the gamut of complaints from trespassing and suspicious activity calls to disturbances and even a robbery. It was also in mid-November, police found a man stabbed on the main floor of the Colonial who ultimately was uncooperative in their investigation. It's clear the Colonial has been a hotbed for criminal activity for quite some time, but not everyone living in the building is involved with that. Some people are living here because it's the only place that they can afford. Billings is suffering from a lack of affordable housing. Tonight, our Haley Monaco looks at where these tenants could possibly go if they are forced out.
Here at Homefront, the wait list to get into affordable housing is the longest it's been in over 3 decades, and the need continues to grow.
For Princess Big Man, walking miles a day is not unusual.
I walked everywhere.
But now, with 5 young kids in tow, the single mom knew she needed help.
I was very scared because I am now possibly at the mercy of the streets.
She was shut out of nearly every spot she went.
A lot of organizations turned me away, or they said that they could not be of any help.
Until Homefront.
Eventually, I was approved for Section 8, And I was just, overjoyed and overwhelmed because slowly but surely there's progress being made.
She was really at her last end. She's like, if I don't get help today, I don't know what else I'm going to do.
Pamela Aning works with around 50 people a month in Billings, just like Princess, looking for housing assistance.
So I meet with the most vulnerable people in our community.
But the number in need in our community continues to grow.
We just hit over 8,000 people who need housing assistance here in our community.
Staggering numbers with not enough space. Homefront has 455 units and helps with another 1,400 housing choice vouchers.
We need to build, and we need to build a lot more housing.
I would guess that the average is running about 1.5 to 2 years as a whole for our wait list.
1-bedrooms and 4-bedrooms are the most needed, and Homefront is doing everything they can to build spaces and find help for the over 8,000 families needing assistance. But right now, it's a losing battle.
I think that a lot of people have more housing insecurity now than ever.
I believe that people deserve a decent place to live.
Affordable, safe places to stay.
Now that we are not homeless and we are in a very secure spot, I want to start thriving my children in sports and their interests.
In Billings, Haley Monaco, MTN News.
We'll continue to follow the Colonial's case as it moves into trial just next month. But for now, we are going to switch gears and head back inside for a check of the weather with our Ed McIntosh.
Here's the wind reports to the west of Billings. Billings here and then off into the areas closer to the mountains. 50, 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts, 78 miles an hour reported around Livingston earlier in the day. How about 93 miles per hour? That's up by Vista Point, well up into the Beartooth. But through the evening hours, everything in the gold shaded areas show where we have high wind warnings into effect, and that includes Billings and Yellowstone County. More on that coming up in a few minutes.
Well, those strong wind gusts caused some big problems for drivers on Interstate 90 today. Take a look here. Several semi-trucks either toppled over or were pushed off the highway near Livingston. That string of accidents forced law enforcement to shut down both the east and westbound lanes of the interstate for several hours, diverting traffic through Livingston and causing some fairly significant delays for drivers. We don't know if anyone was injured in those accidents. The Montana Supreme Court handed down a major ruling in a landmark case this afternoon, upholding a district court ruling in the nation's first constitutional climate change trial, Held v. Montana. The 70-page decision from Chief Justice Mike McGrath affirms that the 13 youth plaintiffs have a fundamental constitutional right to a clean and healthful environment. The ruling comes nearly 1.5 years after a district court judge ruled on that lawsuit, stating that the state's greenhouse gas emissions are proven to be a fact in causing climate impacts detrimental to Montana's environment and the health of youth. The state immediately appealed that decision, with the Supreme Court hearing the arguments back in July. The 6-1 ruling represents a major victory for the young plaintiffs.
I think it sets a precedent for the world. Honestly, it is historic. There has never been a constitutional climate lawsuit that went to trial and was won before us. And I think you're gonna see a wave of rulings following this, and I think it's a precedent, and it's exciting, and it's really powerful.
Montana Governor Greg Gianforte is one of several state leaders disappointed and concerned by today's Supreme Court ruling. In a statement, Gianforte expressed fears that the ruling will lead to perpetual lawsuits, saying, quote, "This court continues to step outside of its lane to tread on the right of the legislature, the elected representatives of the people, to make policy. This decision does nothing more than declare open season on Montana's all-of-the-above approach to energy." Bringing a taste of Ireland to Billings. That's the goal of a group of local musicians, something they've been enjoying doing for 20 years. As our Isabel Sparts tells us in tonight's Out and About, they now have a new home, Bar MT, but the great Irish music they bring to life, well, that has stayed the same.
Walk past Bar MT in downtown Billings on a Tuesday night, and this is what you'll see. Step inside, and it's like taking a trip halfway around the world to Ireland.
It's musicians sitting around the table having a beer, chit-chatting a little bit between sets. and then just launch it into a tune and seeing where it goes.
For nearly 20 years, this group has gotten together once a week to play traditional Irish tunes and have a fitting name.
When we go out and play other places, when it's not just a sit-down session, we go out and play by the name of Sláinte, which means cheers to your health.
Having formed in 2005, the session originally played at Pug Mahone's, moving to craft local after Pug's closure. Now they've found their new home here at Bar MT.
This space is fantastic. There's all this wood and all this hard stuff, and so it just makes everything vibrate.
Over the years, they've grown and evolved. Anyone who can play is welcome to join, and no session is the same.
There's a certain, in a lot of circles, they call it nya. It's that feeling of when things come together, you know, and just really drop into a groove. There's nothing like it.
There's no sheet music. Each player has the music memorized, but also have the talent to feel it and listen to one another.
You can't be playing from the dots on paper and playing authentically, you know. So you have to have it in your fingers playing.
These guys are super good. They're real musicians.
And for Irish native Padraig Keane, it's a chance to connect with the home he left several years ago.
If this band fell into a traditional Irish bar in Ireland, they'd do extremely well. It sounds like and feels like home.
But for all, despite what's going on outside, it's a place to just wind down, have a pint, and do what they do best.
It is my sanity saver. It truly is. It makes me feel good. I enjoy everybody who's part of it, and we just had a lot of good times.
None of us are the world's best instrumentalists, but we love what we do. And when we get together, that camaraderie, that feeling, it's just something that can't be managed.
In Billings, Isabel Sparts, MTN News.